عيون القلب سهرانة.
8:29. Oh, man. I don't know if Gerald Celente, trend forecaster and publisher of the TrendsJournal, wants to launch a coup d'etat on the anniversary of Occupy Wall Street. It was the second one yesterday down in Zuccotti Park. Poor turnout. Or on the President of the United States, who reminisced on what it was like 5 years ago when the recession hit. Or the fact that Gerald Celente, we have yet to have any CEO involved in that fiscal debacle get charged or even wear the silver bracelets, even for an arraignment, I guess because they were just too big to go to jail. Right or wrong, Gerald?
Well, of course they are. It's, it's... people say that, capitalism is dead. The merger of state and corporate power is too big to fail. That killed capitalism. In capitalism, there's no such thing as too big to fail. It's called fascism. And fascism has come to America. It's a corporate takeover. This isn't, by the way, it's not globalization. It's multinationalization. I mean, here we are in New York. And remember what it used to be? There wasn't a Duane Reade and a bank on every corner, and there used to be mom-and-pop shops. There used to be a thing called pharmacies and hardware stores. Oh, and remember those things, Curtis, called stationery stores before Staples and the other one, Office Depot, took over? So what it is the reason why you haven't seen any of the bigs go to jail or heads roll is because they're in control. It's a complete takeover.
So going from the era of George W. Bush, where when the fiscal collapse took place, he was out of sight, out of mind, to Barack Obama, who said, oh, no, it'll be different in my administration. I'm going to have a hands-on in this matter. Eric Holder obviously has not pulled the trigger on any of these folks. Do you think any cases were made along the way? Any of the bureaucrats or apparatchiks at lower levels said, hey, we got some really good stuff here, man. We could get an indictment.
Of course there were. But look at the fines that were paid by J.P. Morgan and the Goldman Sachs gang. You're looking at, a couple of $100 million. So they pay these fines, Curtis, but we neither admit nor deny any wrongdoing. And this is their way off. I mean, none of us could get away with this. So they pay these massive fines. They give them a slap on the wrist. And it's not only here. Look what happened. They rigged the LIBOR game. They rigged the interest rates. It's a fact. It's not being made up, but no heads roll. Look, it's a takeover, and people don't want to admit it. So, no, you're not going to – the evidence is right in front of us. The payments have been made. The fines have been levied. But no heads roll. What, did these things happen on their own? So none of the top guys ever get hit.
Now, interesting, Mayor Michael Bloomberg, just as one example, came into office. He was worth $4 billion. He's now worth about $30 billion. He's in the top 10 of the Fortune 500 billionaires across the world. All of their incomes have skyrocketed, and yet the average everyday wage that the middle-class person makes, the ones that all the politicians make the ads about that they're fighting for, continues to go down and down and down. What could be done to reverse that?
A number of things. First of all, you put back in the laws that made this country what it was. It was the Robinson-Patman Act, the Sherman Antitrust Act, the Clayton Antitrust Act, and, of course, the Glass-Steagall Act that prohibited the bankers from becoming these gambling casinos and raping us. Again, when I was a young guy, when you were a young guy, there was no, Wells Fargo or Citibanks in New York or anywhere. You had banks were restricted to do business only in their states, and they learned from the Great Depression that they had to rein in the banks. So they put all of these laws into place. Plus the other factors is that we had a level playing field in business. That's why there were all of these mom-pop shops, and people could work for themselves. They didn't have to get a job in Slavelandia, and that's what this thing has turned into. And the other thing is that people better get this in their head. These are not political parties. That's just a polite word for gangs. They're gangs. That's all they are. They're no different than the Bananos or the Gambinos, the Bloods or the Crips. They're gangs. Who made up this BS that we need gangs to run the government? Why are there parties? Oh, we'll call them parties, and we'll put shirts and ties on these guys and make them seem respectable. There shouldn't be parties. Gangs are running the government. This is not a representative form of government. We have 535 congressmen and senators in total telling 315 million people how to tie our shoes. So you have to break up the gangs.
Now, Gerald Celente, if we look at it from a gang point of view, their economic survival is based on selling drugs. Wall Street, the big businesses are used to the drug of free money that the Fed has given them on a consistent basis ever since the collapse. Now all of a sudden they may have to go from taking amphetamines to maybe having a Red Bull to maybe having no stimulus, and they're all going cold turkey and crying at this moment.
Well, it's hurting the entire world because that's the only thing that kept this thing going. All of these emerging markets, you look at their stock markets, they're all down significantly. Money's pouring out of those countries because that's where the hot U.S. money flew into. So everybody knows it's a Ponzi scheme. And they're just seeing how they could wean us off this at a little bit. Look, Curtis, the only reason these economies are going forward are because of the record low interest rates. The interest rates, for instance, just in the real estate market, the 30-year fixed went up 1%, was about 3-something to 4.85 now. All of a sudden, refinancing stopped. All new for mortgages for new applications slowed down. I don't mean stop, but it was slowed down dramatically. So they have to keep these interest rates low. The only way they're going to keep this low, the overnight, is by keeping the money pumping in. So they're going to taper, I believe, a little bit, or maybe none at all. And they won't do anything until after the Christmas holiday because they know that if they freak the consumer out, they already don't have any money, then it's going to be a bad Christmas and they need to juice the economy somehow. So I think there's just going to be a little bit of tapering coming up.
And as reflects the conditions in the Persian Gulf, Middle East, and North Africa, it seems the Barack Obama administration has decided it's better to meet with our enemies to have discussion. There's even the thought of meeting with the new Iranian president when he comes to the General Assembly at the end of the month. The president would undertake that meeting. What kind of signals will this send to the economy? Will it be good or bad?
Look, you saw the American people vote. It's bad for the war. War will be devastating for this economy. In 2000, I was brought to Virginia Military Institute, VMI. I had just written Trends 2000 a few years earlier. And they talked about, they wanted me to talk about new millennium warfare because generals are always fighting the last war. And this new war will be one of dirty bombs, of biological warfare. You attack. They've already said, for example, the Iranians and the Syrians, you attack us, you're going to get attacked. As they used to say in the Bronx, payback's a bitch. So this is the kind of thing. Look, they closed down Boston, 100 square miles to go for what, a 19-year-old kid. Could you imagine if a dirty bomb went off somewhere? The entire economy closes down. When 9/11 hit, the stock market closed for a week. If you had certificates of deposit, you couldn't cash them out. I know because I couldn't and tried. So, no, this would be devastating. The last thing we need is war.
And so you would be all in favor of Secretary of State Kerry continuing to negotiate with all different factors to keep a lid on things in the Middle East, Persian Gulf, and North Africa?
Oh, absolutely. And by the way, I think that, well, we've been writing about it in the TrendsJournal about the drum beats to the war in Syria for a long time. And they're just using these weapons of these gas things as an excuse. There's a new study just came out, not a study, just new findings came out today in Agency Presse France, and they were saying about how Syria has given over more evidence implicating the rebels using this. So I don't know I don't believe anything. Read my lips. No new taxes. I didn't have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al Qaeda. Why would I believe anything that they say from anywhere? And going back to the gang analogy, hey, we got to get rid of that guy Assad. He's not playing the game our way.
And better yet, Mubarak is back. He's up. He's like Jack LaLanne doing one-arm push-ups saying, weren't you all better off 4 years ago, as he's prepared to run, believe it or not, for the future presidency of Egypt? Is that bizarro or what?
Well, again, we did a press release, Trend Alert, on February 14th, 2011. We said there was no Arab Spring. This is when Mubarak got overthrown. And we said, here comes the new boss, same as the old boss. There won't be any change. And they'll say military complex will be back in power, and don't write off Mubarak. You could see it coming. It's all, politics is show business for ugly people all around the world.
Gerald Celente, right on the money. Well, particularly if it's not going to cost you any coin. Trend forecaster and publisher of the TrendsJournal. Any coin. Trend forecaster and publisher of the TrendsJournal.